afternoon and welcome everybody to Jurrnee's webinar series of Hotel Tech Anatomy 101. Today we're focusing on the guest, specifically guest stay optimization, or GSO for short. The topic of today's discussion will be the battleground for the guests' hearts and minds. And I will be your moderator for today. My name is Eric Munoz, director at smarthoteliers.com. And fortunately for me, I'm joined with a star-studded panel of hotel tech experts. Introducing to you first, Rupert Guttridge from Oaky. Thank you for joining us, Rupert. I'll ask for you for a little brief introduction a little bit later on. We also have Karim from BookingWhizz joining us, Ellis Connolly with Laasie, or I should say from Laasie, and Josh Sharp with Roomdex. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to, let's start with you, Rupert. Just give us a little introduction on yourself and or Oaky, if you would.
Yeah, hi. So Rupert Guttridge, been in hotel tech for some time, had a good flavor of hotel from PMS world, revenue world, and now in the upselling space. And Oaky has been doing this now for 9 years with customers all around the world, and really focusing on the guest journey and upselling to customers. So getting very familiar with this world, and excited to speak about it today.
Thank you, Rupert. Let me raise my little mug here of peppermint tea, or Irish coffee, let's call it, and cheers to you. If everyone here is...
Cheers to you and happy birthday, I want to say, though.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday to everyone else around the world celebrating on today's All Saints Day. And Karim from BookingWhizz, please give us a brief introduction to yourself and the company.
Hi, everyone. This is Karim Avani from BookingWhizz. I've been in the industry for about 16 years now. Started as a night porter, but then quickly started the company, BookingWhizz as we know it now, have in the industry for booking engine, direct booking tools, and now the upselling part as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Ellis, as you reminded us a little bit earlier, it's 9 a.m. for you, so you'll be taking some orange juice and vitamin B probably. Oh, great breakfast. So Ellis, please give us a little introduction to yourself and Laasie.
Yeah, Ellis Connolly with Laasie. Likewise with the rest of the panel here, been in travel tech, specifically hotel, for quite a few years now. I'm working with Laasie now, and we're changing the narrative on how hotels think about loyalty through instant gratification and guest recognition.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Josh Sharp. Please give us a little introduction to yourself, if it's needed. I think you're a LinkedIn celebrity here, as we know you from Stay in Touch and other ventures as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, so my name is Josh Sharp. I am currently the CEO and co-founder of Roomdex. Prior to that, I spent a lot of time in hotel tech, most of that at Micros, and in between Roomdex and Micros, I had a company called Stay in Touch, which I sold earlier on to Shiji. Roomdex is a company focused on hotel upsell, also, pre-arrival, during stay. Our focus is very much around automation, so we really try to make the guest journey pre and during stay as automated as possible, while providing a high level of service, or while allowing hotels to provide a high level of service.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to start things off with this GSO concept. How would you each individually define guest stay optimization? What does it mean to you? And is it or is it not important for the hotel operation? I'll start with you, Jos. I want to mix things up here and not go through in a carousel format. What's your perception of GSO?
I think it's a very important aspect of today's hotel business, and I think I would think it centers very much around the digitalization of the hotel pre-arrival experience that guests have. Years ago there was no pre-arrival; you just went to the hotel and you got checked in. Over the last 10-15 years, there's all kinds of opportunities to reach out to the guest prior to arrival, to make the guest aware of things that are happening in the hotel, whether that's something to buy or whether that's an event that's happening. Just prepare the guest in general for what's coming for the guest, and also do that in a way that it may fit what the guest wants. So there's a lot of opportunities to do that prior to arrival. With Stay in Touch, the company I had previously, which was a PMS, we built in mobile check-in and mobile check-out, so the guests didn't have to go to the front desk to do so. We added on to that upsell components. So there is, I think what's important is to understand that the guest has a lot of information that's being given to him or her prior to arrival. Some useful, some not so useful. I think that if you want to do guest stay optimization well, it should be centered around that specific guest as much as you can, which is not always easy because a lot of the guests come from Expedia Booking and you don't know much about them. But even then, the reservation has an arrival date, the reservation is a room type, the reservation has how long does it stay, is it a he or a she? There's definitely opportunities to, at that point already, put in optimization components and information components for the guests that do not require an information overload. So, I mean, before I give it all away to everybody, I think optimization is centered around giving the guests what they want as much as you can.
Yeah, I think I can't agree more. And Ellis, what's your take on GSO?
Yeah, I think there's two ways really that I look at it, and Jos hit on both of them, but from where I sit, it's how do you optimize the transactional engagements at the property, whether it's pre-stay, in-stay, or post-stay, and then how do you optimize the emotional transactions with the guest, right? Because those are two types of optimization that are going to help support, number one, having you as a hotelier capture more wallet share from that guest while they're on property, while they're pre-stay. But also, what are those things that are going to make what are going to make that guest come back to the property, right? What are those emotional ties that those guests are kind of drawing to a specific hotel? What are the actions that people are taking from an operational perspective that make people want to come back to the property? I know that's a broad stroke, and I know we'll probably dig down here in a bit.
Yeah.
But I think, we left out a core piece. It's the battleground for the hearts and minds and share of wallet, right? I don't think we should shy away from that, to be honest with you. And I know, most of the folks here that I'm joined with on the panel are within the upselling world where, I'm working in tandem with, or in parallel with, or we're sharing, geo space on a web or a pre-stay email. I think there's a ton more that we're going to be able to do. And I think if the data sharing between all these companies and loyalty solutions like what we're doing in the property management systems, I think there's just a lot more that we could do around, personalizing and creating really keen experiences that don't feel forced.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction between transactional and emotional touch points. Ellis, thank you very much. Karim, what's your take on guest stay optimization?
For me, it's hotel operations teams is doing a lot of work in making sure that guests doesn't have just the hotel room, but they have more of an experience in the hotel. Is this information being transferred from the operational team, all the hard work which housekeeping, operation department, spa, resorts, everybody from the operation team is putting into the hotel? Is this information being transferred from this team to the guest who have really used the services on that behalf? I have stayed multiple times in multiple hotels. A lot of time, I don't even know what kind of menu they have, if they have any offers, if they have any spa, if they have any deals, if they have any services. I checked out and then I realized, oh, they have this kind of service as well. So this is, for me, it's more about creating the experience. And with the experience, as Alice rightly said, it is a lot of revenue with the experience. If you create the experience, there are reviews, there is an experience, and there is revenue for everyone. So everyone is a winner here. The guest wins, you win, if the information is transferred from the operation team to the hotel and creating an experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there, where all of this information or these services that can be presented to guests can actually have a revenue item attached to it. So whilst it might be useful, it's also an easier way for a hotel to not only make the guest happier, but happy to pay for that as well. So Rupert,
not everyone is looking for the cheapest room, and not everyone is looking for just the room.
Yeah, exactly right. Thanks, Karim. So Rupert, what's your take on this concept of GSO, guest stay optimization?
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of good points that have been made. I mean, it does point back to guest stay optimization as a title. I'm not sure that it should more accurately be described as guest journey optimization. The guest stay is just about that particular stay, depending on how you clarify the name stay, for example. But I mean, there's a lot to be had here. There's all the data that comes in with this guest experience, guest journey, guest stay, all the touch points we relate to. They're absolutely affecting the decisions that are made in hotels and what we position to them. So I would say it's so important to consider that we are really personalizing, segmenting, and offering the right deal at the right time, right place, all that sort of stuff to the guests. We had a really good example recently. We recently did the Oaky Awards, which was just a thing for most creative deal, those types of things. And we had one hotel, the Royal Cliff Hotel, the Royal Cliff Beach Hotel, and one of their upsells was dinner on the beach, and it was their best-selling deal and everything else. It became the biggest reason people booked the hotel. So people were searching for this thing. So again, it's touching on the experience, it's touching on segmentation, it's touching on the data. So there are so many points that are really key. One for the guest, for the hotel, for the ongoing life of how the hotel responds to guests. So yeah, guest journey optimization is, I'd like to give it an even bigger umbrella and you know, and talk about it in a much wider.
Yeah, I think Trevor and Jen will agree with you that journey is a better word than guest stay optimization. It's spelled Jurrnee. Now, question for, I want to open this question up now, probably starting with Jos actually, because I think we all agree on different aspects to the guest stay and how to optimize it. But are we not limited by the degree to which you can integrate with the PMS? Because if it's an operational imperative, one typical stumbling point will be that the message didn't get through to the PMS, or the PMS didn't block the right rooms before a room change, for example. Are we not risking a lot by not having a deeply integrated solution? Anyone who wants to take that up?
I think if the integration is not deep, it's definitely harder to do it, personalization and to do it perfect. I mean, it can help to some extent, depending, you can get that information elsewhere. But I think in today's technology, you still need a lot of that information about the reservation and the guest from the PMS. So to do GSO correctly, or to do the guest journey correctly, you need to have a full two-way integration, in my opinion, with the PMS. That's a lot easier today with the cloud applications out there than it used to be in the past. It's also a lot more affordable. But once you have that two-way integration, you can really to Rupert's point, you can do segmentation, almost sometimes even automatically. You can, work on increasing the wallet share, which you mentioned earlier, Eric. I think is key of why we're doing all of this. It's some hoteliers feel it's like selling is not the right thing to do to their guests that are arriving, but remember, they've purchased the room earlier, which has been sold to them as well. So why can't you sell them additional stuff while they're on the way to the hotel? Which guests actually like, to some extent, especially if it's a rare, especially if it's not for everybody available. It's better guests prefer to pay for it, guaranteed that they have it, rather than being on the request list. So those things, again, all require deep integrations into a PMS. And, when you have that, you can do full automation of that journey.
Yeah. And Jos, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on here, the zero-party data and the first-party data collection strategies that hoteliers can do to help append more segmentation levels into that environment, right? So when you think about a loyalty program for an independent hotel where you're capturing more data from that person, right? Where you're being able to glean more insights about what type of rewards or what type of access to offers that they want, right? You don't necessarily have to give someone something for free, but giving them that access, right? Chef table experience. You're not getting a chef table experience at Nobu for free. You're paying for it, right? So it's an ancillary revenue driver. There's the cookieless conversation that's beginning to happen with Google in 2023. Obviously, that conversation has been happening for a while. But even deeper segmentations through first-party data, zero-party data, preference data, and how you collect that really helps bolster data sets to drive a lot of this personalization.
The upsell goes really, really well with the CRM and the loyalty part. Everything has to be connected. When you have a guest staying in your property, you just have upselling tool. But if you have the data segmentation, as you said, deep integration with the PMS, you understand them really well. And then how you connect in a stay, pre-stay, and then post-stay as well, where the loyalty kicks in.
Yes, exactly. Rupert, how's your perspective there on integration touch points with Oaky?
Look, we've all been in technology long enough to know that everyone wants integration at every level, and everyone thinks a deeper level is really strong. The answer is it is really important to have that, but the question is, what are you doing with it? So the question to me is like, you've got staff in hotels, or a lack of staff in hotels, who have not been trained properly. You've got to give them tools that allow them to see information at the touch of their fingertips. So people on the front desk doing front desk upselling, how on earth do you enable them to give them decision points of what they should sell, what products they should sell, what price they should sell, what's their authorization? Without deep integration, you're not going to get any of that, or it's going to be very, very limited in what it's going to do. So obviously, deep integration is what is required. It's absolutely there. It's really important, though, to really make the most of that integration, really leverage the benefits of that, so that we can really help these hotels not only just improve that customer journey, but just help with the staffing, and which is one of the biggest problems they've got. And again, I come back to your point earlier as well about loyalty. It's really important to guests are walking into the hotel. We better be sure we recognize them. How many times have we checked into a hotel and been asked to write down our address again on a blooming check-in card or something? That's the oldest complaint in the book. But I mean, integration should stop all of that sort of stuff. And so whether you're integrating with loyalty systems, PMS systems, revenue management systems, it all needs to be there. You need to do it well to help, really deliver.
Yeah. And I think we should not assume that everyone who's staying at the hotel is staying there for the same reason. It might be an anniversary, it might be a special event, and just being able to share with them what's available to all guests, but maybe particularly available to guests who are trying to celebrate something, an important milestone, an important anniversary, that can be the tipping point, whether they have to pay for it or not. That can be the tipping point between an average stay and a remarkable stay. I think in hotel hospitality, we're always taught to anticipate the guest needs. And I think whether we call this upselling or GSO, guest stay optimization, it's about anticipating the guest needs, which sometimes is more easily done in a face-to-face transaction. But there's technology, clearly, the panel represents lots of different technology tools here, which make that even more automated. And so that's something that I'd like to discuss now is where does the guest journey start or end, and where from your individual perspectives, and what are the important milestones in between? Let's start with you, Jos.
Well, it starts when the guest makes the booking. I think that's of course the first part. Then depending on how long that is before arrival, there is this time where, in my opinion, and in the psychology opinions, there is little interest of the guest to do the next thing before. But then as they get closer to arriving, so let's say a couple of days ahead, when they start, I don't know, thinking about what they're going to put in the suitcase, or they start thinking about the meetings they have to schedule, or the dinner they want to have at the beach, or whatever they want to do while they go somewhere. So that usually starts happening a couple of days before arrival. That's, I think, where optimization and guest information and pre-arrival offerings can come into play. And that's where you can further increase the wallet share of the guest. That's also at the point where they are willing to buy more. And very often I have that also. When I buy something 2 weeks earlier, I may not have totally forgotten how much I paid for it, but I've somehow wasted or given away that money already, and I'm ready to buy something else, or get something else that I may or may not have to pay for to further enrich my stay.
Yes.
So that's I think the initial part. And then once they arrive, of course, they're in full stay mode, and during the stay they're in full stay mode. I think once they're gone, so once they've checked out, I believe, and I might be totally wrong here because I'm not in the CRM business, that the guest is also checking out. In other words, they're done with receiving anything else from the hotel until they are thinking about the next journey. That's how I would envision it. So the guest service focus, the stay focus, optimization, all of that, and I think all of us on the phone here or in this meeting conversation are very much focused on pre-arrival and during stay. And that's I think where most guests are interested in learning more about the hotel and services available.
Thank you, Jos. And Ellis, is it your personal perspective on the touch points, or the Laasie perspective? Is I presume, I don't know a lot of Laasie, but I presume it's more the emotional touch points during the search and booking phase.
Yeah, so from a guest journey, right, perspective of where it starts and ends, it's cyclical, right? If you look at every CRM or CDP or GDP, however you want to call it these days, it's all about, in that dreaming and planning phase, in that research and desire phase, right? What are we doing at the top of the funnel to drive interest to our properties and our brands? How are we moving them through the funnel, right? Here comes upselling and packaging opportunities. What type of value can we drive through holding rate, right? What type of loyalty initiatives can we deploy within an environment to shift share from OTAs, right? I think there's a lot that happens in that pre-stay. While I do agree with Jos, like once that person's in that like packing their bag phase and getting ready to hop in the car or a plane, you do have a bit more engagement tactics that you can deploy within that time. But throughout the journey on property and even post-stay, right? When you think about, what are the things from a stay optimization? Are there service recovery opportunities that need to happen because there was a poor effort that happened on the property, right? That happens days after checkout, right? Big brands give points. Folks that use Laasie deploy rewards in those types of environments. And then what are your engagement tactics and strategies, whether it's through CRM, through loyalty, through whatever it may be, through retargeting? What are those strategies that you can look at and say, okay, Eric traveled to my hotel. He selected this upsell. He selected these 3 rewards from Laasie. We know a lot more about Eric than just that he's staying Tuesday through Thursday, this part of the season, and he's under this rate code. Now we can deliver something that says, hey, this stay looks very similar to all these other stays that have happened. Let's seed an offer out to Eric and see if we can transactionally get him back to our property, right? So I think there's, for us on the loyalty side and on the guest recognition side, I think it has to span a bit more. The most on property things that kind of I think about we can do right at that check-in is how do we conquest OTA business? Right? How do we incentivize someone to join a program today that's going to give them immediate benefits and value, that's going to help them drive a direct booking to stay with me next time instead of going to booking.com or Expedia?
Sure,
right?
exactly.
And there's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Ellis. Karim, what's your perspective on the most important milestones during that guest journey?
Yeah, because we have at BookingWhizz, we have upselling tools, we have CRM, and we have loyalty. So for us, when the guest leaves, then the goal here is to offer them the loyalty. One of the interesting cases is not only offer them loyalty, but can we have a referral scheme if they had a great stay with us, if we have created this experience with upselling. With the loyalty scheme, can we ask the friends and family they can refer to, and they can be a part of our system as well, so we get more direct bookings in there. So it's not only about that particular guest. It's about all the connections, all the word of mouth referrals you can get from their friends and family, and targeting those as well. So if you maintain a good relation with the guest, pre-stay, in-stay, post-stay, based on the reviews, based on the intelligence you have received from the system, from the CRM, and then you can create a referral system for the hotels, for the guest, then it's a win. It's an excellent win for the hotels. Your direct bookings will increase, your direct revenue is increasing. So for me, it's all about connecting with them, and there is no start or there is no end as such, but it's all about every guest is different, every region is different, and then how do you create a bigger network from that particular guest is entirely it should be the strategy for the hotel.
Yes, thank you very much, Karim. Rupert, how does Oaky have those touch points? Do you have touch points beyond the booking or pre-check-in phase, or what happens with Oaky and the guest during their stay, for example?
So to touch on some of these things that have already been mentioned, that sort of dream phase is really important, but you only understand that dream phase if you've got the data points to follow up on. So I mentioned the Royal Cliff with the dinner on the beach. That became very popular, and so therefore you start pushing the aspirational dinner on the beach kind of thing. We had another hotel with Antara, but doing basically floating breakfast. So they had a very beautiful breakfast floating on a pool, beautiful backdrop, a lot of Korean guests, Koreans posting this on social all the time, driving an awful lot of direct bookings as a result of seeing these social postings and things like that. So that's that kind of dream phase kind of created. That leads to the booking. Now, once the booking happens, you're kind of thinking, right, people tend to book a number of places on a stay and then decide which one they're going to firm up with later. Again, using a good upselling tool, if you're able to upsell to them, you're absolutely decreasing the number of cancellations that are made against all the reservations that you've already got. So if you can touch them at that point, that becomes really critical. And then again at the front desk, they've reached the front desk. They've probably had a bad journey or a long journey or a tiring journey. How are you going to inspire them and make them feel great about their stay? At that point. So a great offer, a recognition, all of this type of stuff that's at your fingertips, that the member of staff is able to relay to the guest. Again, another significant touch point. And then you're in stay. And then I would say, the problem is today there aren't enough people on the front desk to answer phones, deal with people's requirements. And people have a short attention span, a short level of patience. So when guests are phoning down and saying, can I have some extra pillows? Can I have this or a particular item? They're expecting an immediate response. That has to be a digital journey these days. A lot of people are far happier ordering and working in a digital environment than they are on a face-to-face environment. So again, addressing that need in stay, and then of course you get to the checkout, and then how you recognize, what they've spent, how you dish out those loyalty points, making sure you've got a complete picture of what that guest is really key as well. So I think as far as the guest is concerned, yes, it's the pre-stay, it's the front desk, it's the in-stay, and then you become the less tangible areas stretch beyond that dream phase, and then what you do with the data. But those two areas as well are very critical for the hotel itself to understand what it's doing, who its guests are, and how they're interacting with the hotel. So those are various areas, I'd say.
Thanks, Ruben. I'd also like to remind our audience, if you guys have any questions, whether you're watching via YouTube right now or watching through LinkedIn Live, you're very welcome to submit questions. Jen from our team here will be taking those questions down and sending them through to us. So the floor is open to you, the audience, for questions as well. I wanted to pick up on what was discussed just now and maybe start with Ellis this time, where if each of your solutions are the catalyst for the guest stay optimization, whether it's in a transactional phase or an emotional touch point with a guest, is it the PMS that should be the end point, or either the PMS or the CRM or loyalty that should be the catch-all for any continual marketing to that guest again? Because in my opinion, a lot of your solutions today should have probably been the brainchild of a PMS if they had that headspace or that inclination. It's a bit like RMSs out there. An RMS requires all of the data from the PMS. So why didn't the PMS evolve to produce an RMS? So it's a broad question. Ellis, starting with you, where who is the end point? Is it if the transaction starts with Laasie, where does it finish?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that create some moats around Laasie and the way that we deploy in this type of environment, because the beauty of what we do is access to a massive merchant network that allows properties to deploy offers and rewards, as well as incorporating their own on-property content, the beach dinner, what have you.
Yeah.
We sit within, and it's shifting, right? I think over the last 5 years, you've seen shift where, enterprises have been on the CDP or, guest data platforms for quite some time now. You've got the kind of mid-sized groups who are shifting to a CDP type of environment where everything goes to live and then breeze off of that. But when you come down from there and you're looking at small groups and independent hotels, a lot of the world lives within the CRM, right? The CRM is where you're driving transactions and revenue back into all of that data that you've seeded from the CRS and the PMS, the folio data. With Laasie, we do have groups today that use us. We have email functionality, and we're not competing in the CRM space at all. But if you need to send an email to somebody about delivering a reward or an offer, we do that. I think when you scale up to the enterprise, all the way down to an independent hotel, I think it's different varying levels of where the endpoint or where the catch-all actually sits. And you can see that by the products that big enterprise style CRMs deploy versus what kind of more CRMs that are delivered or kind of more geared towards the independent. I mean, their products are similar in nature, but the scalability of them stop at a certain point.
Yeah. Now, you've architected these solutions we're talking about. Where do you see the ideal endpoint? If a transaction begins with Roomdex, where should it sit for the next guest visit?
The unfortunate thing, or fortunate thing, whichever way you look at it, is that depending on what you want and what data you need, you may still have to go back to the PMS. Honestly, if the CRS would have everything, or the CRM would have everything, that would be awesome, because then we would have to write 20,000 interfaces. We could just be done with a few, but that's not the case. If you, however, want to understand inventory, you want to understand the exact room availability, you want to understand, is the room actually clean or dirty at this point in time, you still have to go back to the PMS to achieve that information.
Yeah.
So if you really want to optimize the guest stay and you want to offer them that personal offer as it relates to room inventory, then you have to connect still to the PMS. You can do till some extent with the CRS, but not all the time. And also not, the CRS may not have all reservations because there may be some deals between the CRS and the hotel. To Alice's point, smaller hotels don't have a CRS. So ultimately, if you want to get all the data that we all talked about today, to a large extent, you still have to go back to the PMS. That's where it sits today. And I know that companies like Amadeus and Sabre are potentially working on a CRS that has more, but it's not there yet. I haven't seen it yet. And I think really, if you want to, like things like early arrival and late departure, if you want to actually guarantee those automatically, you still have to understand what the PMS is doing and thinking at the time of offering those.
Yeah, thank you. Karim, what do you see as you're in a unique perspective here because you've got loyalty and CRM plus the upselling integration. So is the PMS interaction key for specific room number blocks or cleanliness status of the room?
Look, PMS is the key, no doubt about it. But we have a lot of group of hotels who have different PMS systems. The data is not centralized. And this is where CRM plays a really, really key role. There are a lot of PMS systems where data is centralized for a lot of hotel groups. But all we understand is, a lot of hotel groups have different PMS systems and different properties, or they have, if they have same PMS system, data is not centralized. So CRM plays a key role here, where we read from different PMS systems, understand it, and then pass the information to different hotel groups as well within the hotel groups. So for the intelligence. So let's say if we see some certain trend in one hotel, we can pass it on to another hotel as well. If Eric has stayed in one hotel, what his preferences is his, then if it's a bigger group of hotel and he's going to stay in another property, this information we can pass it to the hotel for the optimization of the stay here. Okay. So PMS is the key, no doubt about it, but CRM plays a very, very important role, depending on the structure of the hotel and structure of the hotel groups. But this nowadays, all the PMS, as I said, there are a lot of going on cloud, but still there are a lot of PMS which are not in cloud.
Okay. And Rupert, how do you see these touch points or milestones in terms of the guest journey? Is it the end? If the transaction starts with Oaky and it finishes with PMS, what's the Oaky's interaction to try and work with that guest the next time? Do you have that data for a repeat visit?
Yeah, so look, I think to go back to the earlier part of the question, the importance here is to be real specialists in your space. I think, you started off by saying really, wouldn't it be great if one system did all of this stuff? And I think that's the nirvana that all hoteliers would love, if they just committed to one system and it did it all. But we all know, we've all worked in, whether it's revenue, PMS or whatever, these systems are incredibly complex, and the amount of requirements that the varying different types of hotels have drive changes within those systems. So at Oaky, we only do upselling. That's all we do. And we want to be a real specialist in that area. We want to know the guests. We want to absolutely understand what they should be, sold and at the right time, at the right price, et cetera, all that kind of stuff. But again, there are various other things to throw in here, GDPR regulations and various other bits and pieces. Who's storing this data? What are you doing? Well, how are you using it and everything else? So again, coming back to that integration question, integrating with the PMS that is storing all of these, all the CRM. So, as Jos said, you've got to go back to the PMS, all these data storage areas to pull out those various elements or areas that you need to understand. So for us, it's all about making sure that we can offer the guest the biggest selection, but defined and honed just to their requirements. So it's very, they're not given too much choice, understanding what they've done in the past, understanding why they're staying today. And then again, that's shaping what we should upsell to them, because every guest now is, so many more people are traveling because of business, leisure. Then there's the pleasure piece, which is a combination of the two. How do hotels understand that? So being able to segment those guests, understand who they are. Again, we're pulling on the data from lots of different streams, from revenue streams, from revenue systems, from PMS systems, CRM systems, exactly, to define who that guest is in order to get that. So we don't do it all ourselves. We rely on that deep integration, but it's an essential part of what we're doing.
I think the underlying theme here is that obviously the guest stay optimization has multiple angles to it, and the automation is key, especially with the PMS and then loyalty and CRM. But I think as hotels have more and more issues with staffing, finding experienced staff in all areas of the hotel business, that has to underline the strength or the value of a truly integrated solution, so that guests are being offered the right type of incentive or the right kind of upsell at different points of that guest journey, whether it's while they're searching for a room, or when they check out and they're having an automated review being asked of them. So I think if anything, these technology tools, which might previously have been looked at as a luxury item, I think are a necessity, because the hotel has a choice to either manually train staff to go through upselling schools or upselling training, or just use technology to its how it was designed. And so does anyone have any anecdotes about how your solution, or you've seen solutions in play where you've been the guest? Has anyone got any examples of how you've seen your own technology or similar technology being used? I'll give you one example. So way before the internet, when I was still working in luxury resorts, we were a honeymoon destination. But Rupert, when you were talking about the dinner by the beach, that was one of the options. But the guests, if they didn't read through the entire room service menu, they probably wouldn't have seen that a room service or dinner by the beach was an option. So we made sure we checked the guests in on the way through and showed them their room, showed them their view. That we explained, by the way, if you want to have dinner at any of our restaurants, but via room service on any part of the beach or the poolside locations, that's an option. Almost 99% of every time you mention that, the guests are staying 4 to 7 nights. They made sure that one of those nights was going to be on the beach. And we got nice little mentions in the guest review card, which got circulated out to everybody, and you felt fantastic for doing good service. But I think a lot of what you guys are doing today is automating what should be guest service best practice. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, I think that an example that I have, like one of the things that we offer is early arrival and late departure guaranteed by using the inventory and the PMS to ensure that the hotel can actually fulfill the early arrival, late departure. I like to do that when I travel. So usually I'm early, so I take the product, I get the room, and I don't mind paying for having that room early. So earlier this year, I went to Dubai to ATM, and the hotel did not have our solution. So I called the hotel 4 or 5 days in advance and asked, can I arrive early? And they wrote back to me, actually, I wrote an email to them. They wrote me an email back and said, sorry, we don't do that until you actually arrive, whether we have it available or not. And if you arrive, it's going to cost you 1,000 dirham or whatever the price was.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. So I arrive at the hotel at 8 in the morning. And of course, somebody else at the front desk can say, is there a room available for me? And the first thing she says, which is very nice, of course, we have a room available for you. You can check in now. Thank you very much. So I basically got the room, didn't have to pay, which is great as a guest. On the other hand, I was a little nervous after flying all night. Would there be a room for me available to get in that room at 8 a.m.? I didn't got that confirmation until I was actually there at site. But I think worse, the hotel just lost a revenue opportunity. And this happens to me all the time. Almost every time I need something early, it cannot be purchased in advance. And when you arrive, even though they say you have to pay for it, it's given to me for free, which I like as a guest, but I would imagine the hotel owner is consistently losing out on revenue.
Yes, no, you make a really good point. Yes, Karim.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So I was again in Dubai, visiting one of the hotels, and it's a really nice hotel on the Sheikh Zayed Road, and they have a restaurant on the roof. While I asked the F&B manager to show me the restaurant. I just wanted to see the views from the restaurant. While we were on the lift, there's somebody else walked in with the Uber Eats bags. And the F&B manager was so upset. He said, I have some amazing offers here, but people are still ordering from Uber Eats. And I was like, because you have not delivered the information of what kind of deals you have to the audience.
Yes.
The only information you have delivered is you have 2 posters on the lift about some deals. That's about it. But it's such a huge hotel, such a beautiful property. It's not just 2 things you're offering. There is so many other offers you have. And he was like, right point. And because we deliver, so at BookingWhizz, we have the optimization of the upselling part we do on emails, and we do upselling on WhatsApp as well, which is really, really key because as soon as you guys checks in, they receive a WhatsApp message about the information, about the details they have, and they can able to check and able to book something on that. So when I showed them our system, they were like, yeah, excellent. This is what I really want. And now one of the biggest revenue they have is from the in-stay revenue they have. So F&B manager is really happy, but a lot of hotels are missing out. As I said, as we all discussed, that there is a lot of revenue which is missed out.
Thank you very much. We do have a question from the audience. This is from Rob Patterson, who's actually a brand ambassador at Upsell Guru, so an highly educated audience member. He basically says, our data tells us that only 52% of guests are reached by an email pre-arrival. There are various reasons why that may be the case. 48% don't get or don't even open the pre-arrival email. So front desk is needed. The staff at front desk are needed to complement the process. So he also says, but it has to be a smart approach, a 360-degree type solution where I think we already agreed that front desk is key and PMS integration is key. Otherwise, it can be like asking a child for an ice cream over and over again and getting the same particular answer. And Ralph Mellis, who I think everyone knows from Explore Tech, Ralph is saying, looks like everything is happening in Dubai. All the experiences we've had so far based on Dubai. That's Ralph's hometown. So yeah, any questions, any feedback there on the email delivery versus other methods of delivery?
Great point. Great point. As I said in the last statement, that we do deliver on WhatsApp. The current revenue share we have with WhatsApp is 200% more than the email. Email delivery rate is low, is spamming, there's OT encryption, there's all sort of issues we have. So that's why we have developed WhatsApp. And I think for the Gen Z, if you're targeting Gen Z, and for other audience as well, it is really important to reach out to them on the right device as well. We all talk about right language, right time, but there should be right device as well, where the guest has the most engagement. So at BookingWhizz, we do with WhatsApp, with Instagram, with Facebook Messengers. This is where we engage with the guest as well. But great point, Rob.
Okay. Now, Jos, I want you to look into your crystal ball, if you could, and tell us, how will guest experience be optimized in the future?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, one of the things that that I think could be interesting in the very near future that we are working on is, and I'm not the only one working on it, but the hotel industry has been talking about attribute-based selling for quite some time already, whereby rather than selling a room type, you're selling a feature. And I think when you do that, so rather than, when you offer the junior suite as an upgrade, you're implying value, but it's not clear to the guest necessarily what the junior suite is. Whereas if you offer, would you like an upgrade to the fire with a room with a fireplace or with a balcony or with a jacuzzi top, you're actually conveying value at that certain time. Now, whether you do that digitally or whether you do that at the front desk, that doesn't really matter. That's just a different channel. But I think being able to convey true value on the specific thing that the guest may buy is an advantage. And I think the attribute-based selling, something that hopefully we'll be able to bring live soon, is really going to make big difference, because it's really going to allow the guests to get exactly what they want rather than somewhat getting what they want. And that, again, does require deep integration with the PMS, and you need to have figured out how to manage inventory of each of these features. But that's, I think, that's the crystal ball that I would like to see come to fruition pretty soon.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And Ellis, what about your magic 8 ball? What's it telling you about guest stay optimization? Not now, but 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, I think we're at the cusp of it right now, actually. And if you think about what COVID's done to the pieces of technology that I'm currently associated with, you can't go a week or two without a major loyalty program in the hotel space, or in any space for that matter, moving the goalposts, because frequency has changed, right? Frequency of travel has changed. And when you think about how a traditional e-commerce transaction happens and what some of the fintech companies, what financial services, what other folks outside of our industry are doing in order to reward and emotionally tie themselves to consumers, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see the movement of instant gratification in parallel to points start to grab hold of how big brands and, for our world, how independent hotels and small groups start to reward their guests. And we're at the cusp of it right now. But look, I think, I know Jos is hedging towards the attribute-based pricing. We've chatted quite a bit lately, coming from Sabre, I think that's some things where, there's still a lot of work to do. I think we're close. I think Jos will tell you we're probably closer than what we think. But I think there's opportunities in that to drive more segmentation, which again now becomes scarier, right? Like, how many more times can you segment down? Segmentation on top of segmentation on top of segmentation. Now you got one person you're selling to, right? So I think it'll be interesting around the categorization and the data mining and how people kind of can leverage AI to sit on top of that to append into that ecosystem of attributes-based pricing.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alice. And Karim, how do you see the future? Do you see a big PMS gobbling up all the different components needed so that's a single solution, or what do you see in the future?
Yeah, we talk about future a lot, but there is a lot of hotels who have not even implemented what we have right now in the industry. Mm-hmm. For me, if I'll be really, really happy if the hotel can reach the guest omni-channel on whatever device they have. As we said, we have such a great offers. Everybody is doing amazing work in the hotel to create experience. But can we reach to the guest? How often can we reach to the guest? As Rob mentioned, it's 52%, only 52% reaching with our emails. If we can reach to maximum amount of guests and we can deliver the message via omni-channel messaging, that will be great. I'll be really, really happy with that. In 3 to 5 years, if the most of the hotels have approached it, and not only the emails.
Yes, no, exactly. I've got a comment here from Ralph, who commented earlier. Ralph said, attribute-based selling is very complex. IHG and Amadeus have been trying to do this with the ACRS product, but he's not heard a lot of success stories with it yet. And then another audience member named Robert Wainwright has commented, however, I think he's talking about attribute-based selling. It destroys room types in the PMS. Interesting point. Now, Rupert, what does your magic crystal ball tell you about not what's happening now, but the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years time in terms of how guests' experience might be optimized, especially from an Oaky point of view?
Yeah, so so we think and talk about this quite a lot, and I would say that more integration is happening. So we'll get to understand the guest even better. That's guaranteed. So we'll understand the guest better. What we do is we've done some very good work around A/B testing. You send out one kind of offer to a guest, send out a different type of flavor of it, and see which one bites better. We're seeing some great results when we do that. So what we're understanding from that is that people have different requirements, based on geography, segmentation, whatever that is. But one thing that's absolutely clear is you've got to remember the human factor here. The technology is great, the integration is great and everything else, but it's kind of what is the emotional bit that's going to get people to buy? So as Jos said, when you're talking about an upgrade or whatever, you don't want to know that it's so many square feet by so many square feet and there's a shower and a bath, not just a bath or whatever. That doesn't really spice it up for me as a guest and make me want to purchase. You've got to get in touch with their emotional side and everything else. And there's no better way of doing that than with a bit of video. So, we're seeing at the moment upselling just being a static image with a description underneath. If you could hone their requirements, you understood the guest so clearly, you sent them a great little video of their stay with all of the various aspects that are in that, it would make for a magical kind of experience for the guests to have prior to arrival. And it goes at all ends, whether it's dinner on the beach with a beautiful sunset. We worked with another sort of hostel company, and they had a bunch of offers. One was a bike, one was a lunchbox, and one was a map of the city, and they could buy any of these upsells or whatever. And they found that 2 of these were great. So they bundled them up as a package and gave them, instead of giving the guest a choice, bundle it up and said, be a local for the day or whatever. And suddenly you've brought a bunch of upsell items together. You've given it to the guest. They understand the experience they're going to have. And so therefore you're reducing the choice, making everything a whole lot better. So it's really touching the emotional side of what the guest is wanting to experience, because you've got great data on them from historical visits. So I think that's more personalization later.
Yeah.
And can I add on that, Eric? Because
yeah, sure. Just before you do, please hold that thought, Ellis. I misread Robert Wainwright's comment. There's 2 parts to his comment. I only read the second part. So Robert said, regarding PMSs, in the glamping world, they're moving into be able to offer specific rooms or cabins, and this is some kind of Airbnb effect into hospitality, a little bit like booking a specific seat on an airplane. And then he said, however, it destroys room types in the PMS. So I just wanted to clarify his statement in that context. Over to you, Ellis.
Yeah, so I was, listening to Rupert talk about, connecting emotionally, and then also tying it back to Kareem's example from earlier when he was in the lift with the GM and the Gen Z person was walking with the Uber Eats, right, and not driving ancillary revenue to that hotel. We've got to get out of that mindset sometime also, though, right? Because what if you delivered an offer to that guest, which was a credit to Uber Eats, right? If you've got a subset of customers or guests that are coming to your property that are accustomed to eating in that type of manner, you can provide a reward infrastructure to support that type of traveler, which is going to tie more emotionally to them, as opposed to trying to force, in this context of this short conversation, instead of force that offer, on the elevator pitch, on the elevator door. So, just thinking through some of those ways that the younger generations buy, what they're used to, how they travel, how they get around town, how they eat their food. We have brands that work with us that, like vacation rental or short-term rental brands that don't have F&B establishments. And one of the packaging offers they do with our products is they'll package a Whole Foods offer with a Uber Eats offer and a week, a week-long entrance to a gym, right, in a specific market. And if it's booked over a certain date, we package all those offers together from our merchant network, and we seed that out against that rate code. So I think there's a lot of different things that hoteliers should need to be thinking about in regards to maybe just shift the narrative slightly. And it's not a big ask or a big lift in order to support them.
Great point. As one of the example is, we have worked with a lot of properties in London, small B&Bs. They want to create experience for the guest. They don't have any upselling. They don't have any room upgrades. They don't have upselling. But a lot of people who comes to London, a lot of visitors who come to London, they want London Big Bus, Madame Tussauds, London Eye. London has so much to offer on this.
Exactly.
And this is where Alice points comes in, that as well, that if you want to create an experience, a small B&B, they want to create an experience, they have to have other merchants connected to a system so guests can book it. And this is why, at least one more thing we do as well for London, we don't offer the airport transfer. We offer a credit to Uber on the app. So it's a great example of the hotel is saying that, why don't you take the Uber and here's a £10 credit to it. So not only what they have in the hotel, but they should be looking at what guest really wants. As an example of London or other big cities, can creating the experience.
Yeah, I think New York's another city like London where there's so much to do on the doorstep of the hotel for guests, and guests who aren't as let's say adventurous as others would probably appreciate the hotel curating and collecting and even packaging and bundling these services. We have another comment from the audience. The comment is, surely guest stay optimization will only really evolve if we focus on the guest rather than just adding technology to what hotels typically do. And I think that's probably a good point in the sense that a lot of these solutions can be automated without any staff member needing to interact, unless there's a supporting technology on a face-to-face meeting with the guest. So if the system is telling the hotelier what is available to offer the guests right then and there, presuming they haven't already opted in for the pre-stay type of offers. Any thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, I would say most definitely. There's and that's why I think a bunch of us have sort of kind of touched on that already. There's the pre-stay where it is a digital engagement, but then at the front desk it's a human engagement. But you've got to give the human on the other side, the member of staff, the tools to be able to communicate well with the guest. So whilst the guest has come into the hotel, the staff member needs to be able to see what offers are around, what are my negotiation levels, gamifying that kind of experience, in ensuring that the member of staff's getting some commission and really kind of giving the member of staff a reason to be excited about upselling. So you're getting staff retention and everything else, as well as improving that guest journey. But again, dealt with by human interaction, but a technology is there working in the background, just making sure it's all going according to plan. So that's really, really important. And again, just a key part of the solution that you must kind of look for when you're looking for this.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a crossover between upselling and just guest service. And I'll give you another example. I stayed, the one and only time I've been to Marseille in France, I was checking into the hotel. My colleague and I had just done a day full of meetings, checked in, and I asked the receptionist what because the hotel didn't have a restaurant, what restaurants are nearby that were interesting. I was end of the day. I didn't want to go wandering. If I could just ask the receptionist, she said, "I'm sorry, I don't live near here. I don't know." I said, "No problem, thank you, no worries." And I went to my room and spoke to my colleague. My first reaction was I was annoyed but when I thought about it, I was really disappointed that she hadn't even been given the training or didn't have a sheet of paper under the front desk which said, if any guest asks, this is a seafood, this is blah, blah, blah. That was just a total drop in guest service, which any technology, even the PMS can have a little concierge diary, the recommendations of the day. And I think a lot of these guest service elements are easy, low tech or no tech fixes. If you've already had that experience yourselves, it's like the guy in the lift, the chef looking at the guest with Uber Eats. well, even if the guests are asking sometimes, the staff don't know what's in that local area if, for example, it's a limited service hotel. What do you think, Alice?
I think you have, I mean, look, the same scenario. I used to go to Munich, 4 times a year for many years, and I had stayed at the same hotel, and they never knew who I was. I mean, that is like, that's the fundamental crux of, some of the challenges we face. Yes. Even more so amplified by the shifting of our, human resources challenges that we're facing in the hotel and hospitality and restaurant industry as a whole today. Look, some brands do it extremely well, right? We work with Margaritaville Hotels and Resorts. We power their entire Margaritaville Perks program. It is ingrained into the training and ecosystem. When somebody checks in, if they're not a member, that you enroll them, you engage them, they gamify that based on front desk agent, and they create a reward for that agent across the entire brand that wins for the most signups, right? There's all these different types of things. At the brand level, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, Accor, right? That's why you buy the flag, because that training is incorporated and it's mandated and it's standardized, right? The standardization of that type of training is what gets lost when you move down into the small group and little hotels where you think it would be easier to execute.
Yeah, exactly right.
So it's almost, it's almost, ships passing in the night, as they say. Look, the easiest solutions are sometimes the hardest ones to execute, right? And whether it be in technology or whether it be in human. So it's, it's just that thing where, you've got to, and I go back to the hospitality business. We're in the business of being hospitable. Yes. And knowing where the restaurant is, if you don't have one on property, is probably something I would solve. So you should give that call a restaurant in Marseille and, let them know where you went and send a recommendation, Eric.
Exactly
I was general manager for a hotel in London, and a guest walks into the property, and this is, where is London Eye? And the receptionist, she just came to the UK, and she said, I don't know. And I was so furious about it. I was like, okay, we have to do so much training. An earlier point, Alice, a lot of big brands, again, a lot of training they provide, but how can you provide training about what's local here, what's the local food here, what time is London Eye is, what can you see in London? It's a lot of training about the region, about the local areas, about the food. It's difficult. It's very, very, I've been general manager, it's extremely difficult. The hotel will need the tools. We'll need a lot of information for the guest. Back in days, we have worked on a lot of diaries, lot of worksheets which we can put in the guest rooms. But if we can digitalize it, if we can send them pre-arrival all the information, that's excellent. But again, you don't take away the training. Training is really, really important. But how can you train somebody who have recently arrived in the country a couple of months ago, working in reception? It's difficult.
It's difficult, but it's
that goes. I mean, I think that. Sorry, Eric. That goes back to like what Alice said. It's not that hard to have a piece of paper behind a front desk with the 5 best restaurants, or what even you said, Eric. It's not that hard. I think you can. I think sometimes we all overcomplicate the whole thing as well, even at the front desk and even at the hotel. I mean, all of us sell all day long our software, and often, I'm sure, at least I have that, there is these questions about the one-off little thing the application needs to do in order for them to buy it. Completely bypassing all the basics of actually having the minimum features and functionality of what we intend to sell to the hotel. Yeah. And you can see here, this happens not only with software, it happens actually in the hotel itself. It costs nothing to have a piece of paper that explains to the front desk agent what the basic things are around the hotel for any guest that arrives. It's for sometimes we just go straight to the far end, so nothing happens basically.
No, exactly. And I think that for our audience members, hopefully have enjoyed the conversation today. We've just approached or just eclipsed the 1 hour mark. I'd like to thank all my fellow panelists. And if you'd just like to highlight your website address or how they can get in touch with you, if anyone has questions or more information they would ask for any of you, Rupert, how's the best way for people to get in touch with you or at Oaky?
Really simple, rupert@oaky.com. Just
fantastic.
Email. Very straightforward.
Oaky, OAKY.com, right? And Karim, the best way for anyone to get in touch with you?
Karim at bookingwhizz.com. That's the email address, or bookingwhizz.com. Go to the website and reach out to us.
Perfect. Ellis, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, Laasie.ai. So LAASIE.ai. And I'm Ellis at Laasie.ai.
Great, thanks. And you're similar way to get in touch with yourself at Roomdex.
Very similar. So it's you can either use sales@roomdex.io or myself, which is Jos, JOS @roomdex.io.
Great, perfect. And for me, I'm on LinkedIn. I love receiving 15 or 20 different emojis for my birthday every year, even if we've never met before. But thank you all so much for supporting me here on the panel discussion, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Great discussion, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.